spiritual principles, higher powers, cosmic forces exist. Unfortunately, for most human beings, the closest they ever get to them is a very shallow contact with mechanical religion, with singing hymns, with quoting from religious books, with association with religious ideas. I assure you, I guarantee you, at the very start this afternoon, that there is a world of difference between religion and true spirituality. You have been exposed endlessly, bombarded fiercely by religion, haven't you? This religion and that one, maybe a dozen of them. And you're being told on all sides which one is going to get you to heaven faster or with the less amount of work. Too bad. Too bad that no one ever told you, and maybe too bad that you didn't want to listen. Too bad no one ever told you that there is a reality, a truth, a deliverance, a rescue, a sanity above what mankind, what humanity calls religion. That's just a word. Someone asks you if you're religious, you say, yes, I'm religious. I've been to church 5 times in my life. What does that mean to be religious? It means nothing at all. And the reason it means nothing at all because it hasn't changed a thing inwardly in your mind and spirit. You are still the same struggling, bewildered, lost, confused, self-centered human being. Isn't that a tragedy? And the tragedy is being spread around the world and has been spread around this world for thousands of years in the very name of rescue. If human beings had been offered true rescue and they wanted it, things would be different, wouldn't they? Rescue from what? Well, we better find that out. Rescue from what? Maybe you've never encountered this before. Rescue from being who and what you presently are. You'll all agree, won't you? Coming here this afternoon, you'll all agree, won't you, that you need rescue from yourself? Well, who else? Not from the boss, not from the past of those foolish mistakes you made, not from the past, but from the present nature that makes your thinking, your acting, your feeling, your reacting what they are. And what they are is pretty dreadful, isn't it? Shall we put it as simply as possible? Where are you going to find a human being who is authentically happy because he's free? Where are you going to find it? You haven't found it inside yourself. Now, again, this is all too bad because, as I said at the start, just as real as this hall we're in, just as real as this physical world you inhabit, just as real as that, there are principles, ideas, powers by which you, listen please, you can change being the kind of a human being that you are. Now that doesn't mean anything to you, and I know it doesn't. Because if you only have one thing, there's nothing to compare it with. If all you have is live in one country, and I say there's another marvelous country 1,000 miles away you can travel to, that doesn't mean anything to you. All it is words. I said marvelous country. All you know is the present country you live in. All right, that's good. That's a start. The time will come when you'll be able to compare your present state with another state, a much higher state. if you're willing to do something you haven't been willing to do up till now, which is to follow the schooling, since we're in a school here, to follow the schooling of spirituality, which says you must do certain definite things. And the first thing you have to do, here is rule 1 in the school, the esoteric school. Rule 1 is to see yourself as you actually are right now, seated here in this hall. Plus the way your life has been in the past. Your frustrations and your fears that other people and circumstances are going to hurt you. I am here to tell you that is a fraud and you don't see it. If you get hurt, it's because you're living from a personality that can get hurt and there's no need whatever to continue to live in it. I've given you the facts. And shall I tell you what's happening inside your minds right now? I know, absolutely, 100% what's happening. It's called resistance. It's called fear of the unknown. It's called leaving the comfortable jungle. You know, you take a man who's lived in the jungle with all the savage beasts and the pits and the marshes, and you tell him about another place, he's going to fight you. You tell him about a better place, he's going to say, don't take away the only home I've known. It's extremely important for you to understand yourself right as we are meeting here today, so that you begin to understand what I am telling you when I say you were loaded with fear. So much fear that some of you will want to get up and walk out of here, and some of you may do it. Because you're afraid. Listen, please, listen. You're afraid that truth is going to take away your life. My dear ladies, my dear gentlemen, you have no life. You have no life to lose. You have a wretched existence, and you know it and I know it. All you have is a repetition of your same old sorrows, your same old huddling up and saying, please don't hit me again. Your same old resentment over this mad competitive system we have, ruled by madmen and followed by madmen and mad women. What marvelous progress we have made in the last 8 minutes. We've found out where we are. Now to find out exactly where you are internally, you understand we're talking about internal things? To find out where you are internally is the first step toward changing it. If you want to lie, if you want to get angry and walk out of here either physically or mentally, you can do that. The doors are wide open. Or you can close and you can say, nobody knows I'm resisting. You could do that if you want. If you want to continue to be the same kind of a foolish human being tonight, this afternoon, as you have been in the past, aren't you impressed so far with this talk, in that it is totally compassionate? Aren't you? You thought it was harsh? How can it ever be harsh to state the facts? What is harsh is falsehood. What is cruel is lies. Isn't it marvelous, overwhelmingly, to be in a room, in an atmosphere where nothing but health and purity is being circulated? Don't you feel better already? Don't kid me. If there is just one little tiny part of you here this afternoon that feels refreshed at the honesty and the sanity of it, That is great. Never mind the rest of you, which is junk. The junk wants to keep in control of your life. And if you listen to me instead of to that, it will begin to lose control, and you won't be afraid anymore. You won't be afraid. You gentlemen, for example, won't be afraid of not making it financially and career-wise. You won't be afraid at all because there'd be no wrong self in you to want to make it to the top. So you make it to the top, what have you got? So you've got $1 million and $1 million neurosis. And you go home scared, don't you? So it's very nice so far that we've uncovered a number of facts. Now we're going to go into another one, another beautiful fact. It's all about another danger. See, to expose a danger is to render it harmless, right? A danger is a danger because you don't see it. You don't see it as a danger. You take it as a friend. Haven't you ever been involved with someone who was a danger to you eventually? You thought he was nice, she was nice, an organization maybe, relatives. You thought they were nice, pleasant, generous, kindly people, and they turned out to be bums, which they were. They were, and lured you into the trap because you just didn't understand. Well, you can understand after this afternoon and won't be lured into the traps anymore. I want to cover a danger, a hazard to you waking up. You're asleep now. You don't even know what that means to be asleep, but simply it means to suffer, to have a lot of hidden hatred and hostilities in you, and to conceal them, and to go around saying you have a lot of love in you for other people. You don't have any love at all. All you have is the word love. Now, here is the danger, the block to any human being freeing himself from his pain, which he loves, which you love. If you have pain, you love it. What a terrible thing. This danger, let's see if this sounds familiar to you. This danger is called wanting my own way. How many of you want your own way, Alta? How many of you demand your own way? You fight and you scream at the smallest thing, and you idiotically argue. You know, it's all right when a little kid argues and screams because he's not mature. At least we understand it. You're not a little kid anymore. You can't scream and holler anymore. You're supposed to grow up. You're supposed to say, time to go to school. Time to go to a higher school. Time to mature and behave like a mature human being. And I am telling you that you don't know the rewards of living from a mature mind. Because a mature mind is a non-hostile mind. There's no way it can turn against you. Haven't you noticed how your present mind and spirit turn against you? Your emotions. Haven't you noticed how they attack you all the time? How you feel guilty and ashamed of things you've done in the past? Haven't you noticed that? Aren't you aware? Well, that's a simple awareness. Aren't you aware of how you're being attacked all day long by things going on inside of you? Where do you think the pain originates? It originates from the wrong reaction, from the unhealthy reaction. Now, here is the difficulty, and follow along with me here, please, on this. A human being says, angrily and fiercely, and he clenches his fists as he does it, he says, I want my own way. Now, what does that mean? It means that he wants his own way to believe in life according to his own self-benefit, ego benefit, and I'll make that clear. He means that he wants to think in delusion. He wants to think according to personal, egotistical, foolish rewards. Example. If I were to ask you whether you are really insecure or not, you'd all have to raise your hands. I'm not talking about financial security or about the security of having plenty of food and a home. I'm talking about psychological security. Now, you don't have it, and you know it. You tremble a lot. You have nightmares. And you always run around trying to find someone to back up your idiotic position. Why? Because it is idiotic. If it was a real position, if it was solid, based on reality, you wouldn't have to run around at all. You could stay home. And when you run around like that, you hurt everybody because you've already hurt yourself. We say then, I want my own way in finding self-security. You're not going to make it. You have never made it. Unless you listen to what I'm telling you here this afternoon, you never will make it. You'll just get more shaky and more hardened against the truth. And if you get to a point where you can no longer hear it, then your destiny is fulfilled, like most stupid human beings, is to be like a sheep for the rest of your life, thinking that hostility and anger and bitterness and striking out at people is a good thing. Now, how is that for a classic example of stupidity, to think that suffering and pain and hostility is good? Anyone who thinks that is sound asleep. Security, real security, if you want it more than you want pseudo-security, is found as follows. So clearly investigating your inner nature with the help that you can get in these classes, for example, so thoroughly investigating your inner nature that you discover that you have been deceived about life by every human being you have ever met in your life since you were 1 day old. Everybody, not by saying things necessarily, although that's a part of it, but by their manner, by what they did. And you as a little kid looked up and saw them doing these certain things. Your father said you had to be successful, and so you said, I better be successful, and you had no idea what the word meant. We have to find out that, listen, this is the very heart of what we're talking about. You have to see that there is no self there that needs to be made secure. If you see that, then there is security. If you think that you exist as a person who needs to be secure, that is delusion. There's no such person there at all. It's an accumulation of thoughts and beliefs that you've stored up in your mind, and you say, that's me. If you're willing to give up the me, the I, the self, give that up, security is automatic, and it, listen to this word, and it is eternal. It's not just for this life, although you can have it in this life. Then see how far this world gets in trying to intimidate you anymore. What could it do? What could it do to you when there's no faults you there to react to it? And you understand the trick very clearly, and you understand how you yourself used to play it on other people, dominating other people, threatening them in order to get what you want, and the other general mad, insane behavior that this world lives by. Now, I said there's a reality, and I want to change the word, a synonym for it. There is a sanity. May I ask all of you a question, please? Would you all join me in this question and answer it to yourself, silently. Here's the question. You, every one of you now, don't get out of it. Are you sane or are you insane? All right, let's take it one at a time. What would you call a good definition of insanity? I'll give you a number. Insanity means to be hateful, to have hidden hatred in your heart. Okay? Now by that, are you sane or insane? You know very well. To be insane means that you know more than God about how to live your life. That you say, I know what is valuable for me, and what is valuable, the man says, is to get all the sex I can, to get all the money I can, to get all the applause I can, to get elected to public office, to be somebody in the social world, academic world, educational world, to be admired, to be respected. This is called insanity, ladies and gentlemen. So what is sanity? The absence of all that. And this is what we're after, the absence of it. Suppose a man doesn't have a home. He's a wanderer, homeless wanderer. And he says, I'm insecure. This is a story, illustration that will back up what we're talking about. So he says, I better build a home. So he runs out into the woods and he gets lumber and vines and tools. And he builds himself a home. And he has several rooms, fairly small house. And the instant he gets it finished, things start to go wrong. The door falls off, the roof leaks, the foundation starts to sag over on the left-hand side. Water leaks in the windows during rain. And all the time that he lives in that house which he has built with his own intelligence, he has to keep repairing it. Every day he gets up and there's something wrong that he has to repair, whether it's the roof or whatever. And it wears him out. Aren't you worn out by the house that you have constructed? Aren't you tired of having to... You get up in the morning and you think you're going to have a few minutes to yourself, and there that sagging boards in the living room demands your attention and your work and your expense and your energy and makes you so irritable. The man gets so tired that he does something very brave. And it's the very same thing you're going to have to do. And you can do it even if you're not brave. Abandon the house, abandon it without knowing where you're going to live next. You understand what that means? It means to drop all your conditioned thoughts, all the false, phony, vicious ideas that other people pressed down on you when you were a child and when you were older. Abandon them, walk away from them. Look what they've done to you. They've robbed you of your life. We're talking about your life. They've robbed you of them and you hang on to them. You live in them. You don't have to. But you have to do something. You have to act. And what you have to do, I'll repeat it. This is a very crucial point. What you have to do is abandon that worthless house that keeps you tired all the time and keeps you angry all the time. Walk down the road away from it, not asking where you're going to sleep tonight. Now, I'm going to continue the story, but I want you to be aware of how you react to what I'm going to say next. Because you've been given so much trash in the name of spirituality. You've been given mere religion. And you may react to it and say, that isn't very practical. It doesn't sound very real to me. What I'm going to tell you next is the most real subject on earth. It is the great real subject under which all other realities exist. So the man who had the courage and the common sense, uncommon sense, to walk down the road and abandon the wreck of a home without knowing where he's going to sleep tonight. He walks down the road, and it's a long, long, lonely road, and he is tempted to turn back, but he's gone too far. He says, I am not going to go back to that wretched life. I don't care who tells me to go back to it, if my mother does or father does, or the minister does, or the educator does. Well, by the way, they're all living in those trashy houses themselves. That's why they want you to go there. Misery does indeed love company. Don't you listen to them anymore. They're wrecking your life as they have wrecked their own. Look at their faces, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that hardness and look at that hatred and look at that anger. And you tell me whether you're looking at a sane or an insane human being. Don't be afraid to see insanity in other people. Eventually, you'll have no fear of it at all. You do now because it's still in you and you fear your own insanity. But that's another story. So he goes on down the road, and what happens eventually is he sees a beautiful mansion in front of him. And he doesn't know what it's all about, but he goes up to the door and there's a note on it that says, this is for you. And it is solid, and it is made by skilled workers, by cosmic powers. You understand the parallel, I'm sure. And he lives in that home, not for this lifetime alone, but forever. Because this home, this mansion, was made by reality. And he inherited it. He didn't have to build it. You can't build. Your clumsy hands, your awkward mind, how can they build something that's eternal? We live in time and call that eternity. He lives in it forever. A great, true spiritual principle is that there is something beyond this physical life. And I've given you a clue to it. I've given you a hint to it. But if you still want to, now listen, I have to get tough with you people. But if you still worship your ego, you will disappear at the break of this talk and not come back. If you are a truth hater, you will get up and walk out during the talk or disappear. Some people don't like to be conspicuous. They like to sneak out during the break. These people are truth haters. These people are going to destroy themselves. And if they came with someone else, oh, you should hear the chatter that goes on between them as they walk away from here, trying to convince themselves that they are right and God is wrong. Can you think of anything more horrible? And if any of you sneer at what you've heard here today, I suggest that when you get home, you look up the word blasphemy in the dictionary. And you had better shake in your shoes. The person who worships his own egotism, his past experiences, cannot tolerate the reality of God in truth. And so he fights, and he destroys himself, and she destroys herself. Again, let me ask, because we have to come to an end of this talk, won't you agree that you have never in your life heard truths, and I'm just the presenter of them, of course, heard truths? Have you ever heard truths that are so perfectly beautiful and so utterly practical? See, truth can do something that you can't do, that your thoughts can't do. What they can do is make you a new kind of a human being. Are you willing to just walk away without demanding a guarantee? And here's the reason you can't demand it. If you demand a guarantee, what you'll do is say, I must have another house like the one I just left. And you'll get that. That is, you'll get involved in another stupid situation with another stupid man who's as stupid as you are, or you wouldn't get involved with him, or a woman. You'll just go around in a circle of despair. But if you walk away not demanding anything of yourself, then that gives reality a chance to present something true and new to you. And finally, all the fight will fall away. You know how much you fight now, how much you sneer, how much you want to argue, how much you want your own way. Do you know that this is called self-destruction? You have to see it as that. And if you see it as self-destruction, believe me, you won't want to do it anymore. You now call it self-creation because it's the only thing you have. The only thing you know to do is to destroy yourself in the name of self-creation. You've got it exactly backward. What you've heard today, being beautiful, being true, being right, will change you if you will permit it. Don't be afraid to let go of yourself. The only thing that can happen is the loss of all your confusions and all your fears, all your agonies. And in its place will be true and everlasting life. Men and women are so baffled, so confused as to why they are unhappy. They just can't understand why one worry should follow another worry. Why one crisis gets over on Monday and the next comes up on Tuesday and the next, on and on and on. Ladies and gentlemen, it is no mystery at all as to why any human being is unhappy, worried. Oh, let's get a little stronger than that. That's a little too mild. It's no mystery why human beings are lost. That covers it, doesn't it? Lost. You know what it means to be lost. You ever get lost as a child? You didn't know the way home, and you were scared, and you didn't know who to ask, you didn't know what to do. So you did the only thing you knew what to do, which was to break down. That habit hasn't changed, has it? You know very well it hasn't changed. No mystery at all. It's utterly clear as to why human beings are lost, wandering inside themselves and wandering the face of this globe, hoping to find something that will give them solid ground, and you haven't found it. And you're not going to find it the way you've been going up till now. The reason you're lost is because you don't understand life. The reason you're lost is because you insist on giving life your understanding, your sense of meaning, your purpose, and your aim. There it is. Now try to get out of that. You can't. When you impose your meaning onto life, guess what happens? You get the results of your self-imposed meaning on life. Okay, let's find out. What do you value? What's important to you? Another human being? There's one problem. Voting for the right candidate, thinking he's going to change things in this country and in this world, there's a second one. What do you think is valuable? What you think is valuable is what you secretly hope is going to change you. You're not going to get away with it tonight. You're going to be brought face to face with the precise problem that you have. And you will be shown something very profound, that if you will accept it, the whole course of life that you have followed up until now, to your misery, and you know it, will be broken. To add on top of all your other difficulties is your resentment and your frustration and your bewilderment over the fact that you can't change anything. Every attempt to lower the worry, to get rid of it, introduces another worry. Every attempt to change your circumstances so that you think you'll feel better in new circumstances only makes all circumstances worse. Now, I want to start right now and introduce the main point that we're going to talk about tonight. I'm going to approach it from various viewpoints, like seeing a building from northeast, southwest, and from the top, so that you can see the whole picture. And I want you to think with me, go very slow with me, so that you can begin to see the great blunder you have made. Whatever your age is tonight, that is the age to start to make the correction inwardly, so that something different can happen inside of you, so you were no longer menaced by yourself. There's no menace but you. Come on. You're not afraid of anything out there. You're afraid of your own incapacity to handle anything out there. If you were in charge of yourself, there would be nothing out there to fear. You'd handle the whole world without even thinking about it, because you wouldn't be a part of that sick world out there. Okay, here we go. Don't draw conclusions now before the end of this talk. Then you may conclude rightly. You have never been able to change yourself. You've never been able to make yourself happy, for example, to generalize. You cannot change yourself. And I want to say that again with another emphasis. You cannot change yourself. The level upon which you presently dwell cannot create a higher level. Thought, which is all you presently have, cannot create spirituality, cannot create anything higher than thought. Thought can only go so high. If that's the level of thought, that's the way it goes. And thought cannot create happiness. It can only create unhappiness when the mind is wrongly used. Here it goes even more. I'm going to say this in several ways, different sides of the building. There is nothing, absolutely nothing, that you can do to change yourself. Now, this isn't a hopeless situation. I have to put it to you this way, and I'm going to say it several ways, so that you get what I'm trying to point out to you. So that you give up, which is the one thing your egotism and your love of misery refuses to do. Because if you were to see the impossibility of you changing yourself, and it is an impossibility, if you were to see it, you would give up. And that would be the end of you, thank heaven. That would be the end of the miserable, wretched little you, which you think is real, which is utterly false, which is an imposter, which you parade around using, calling yourself by your name and wanting your name in headlines, wanting people to love you as if you're lovable, wanting everything to center around your supposed sense of self. This is what you want. Do you think that is going to change anything? It can't change anything. It can only go in circles. And guess, as a result of that, who gets dizzy? You know. When you see the impossibility, absolute impossibility of you doing anything for yourself, when you see it thoroughly, once and for all, without any doubt about it, there is an action in you that is automatic, that is beautiful, that gives up for you. Now, if there is no self, no you as you now know yourself, trying to change yourself, trying to do anything, if that is absent, what happens in its place? You will know by experience, but I'll explain it to you. When there is no egotistical self, no self-centered self, always thinking about yourself, always talking about yourself, and denying that you do so, which now adds a lie to the blabbermouthery. When there is no self operating, what do you suppose is there instead? You don't know. And I'll tell you that your intellectual self, that your conditioned self, your acquired self doesn't want you to know. Well, let me ask you, do you understand that you are indeed your own worst enemy? No, it isn't that marriage that you got into, or it isn't that social involvement or those mistakes you made in the past. Those are nothing at all. The only problem you really have is that you think that you can stay as you are and change what you are. Now think that one through. You think that you can change, and you can change yourself and still remain the same. Now something is going to have to go if there's going to be something different dwelling inside of you. To see the impossibility then, we'll come to a conclusion on this part, to see the impossibility of you ever doing a thing for yourself introduces the possibility of something other than you acting upon you and through you to give you a new life, and it can happen. Not if you're afraid to go. Not if you insist that your present life is the only life possible. Not if you want to argue instead of walk, and you do. The reason you haven't changed at all is because you'd rather argue. And then I will tell you why you argue. You argue because that gives you something to do, which then distracts you from the true spiritual task which you could do in order to become a new kind of a man, a new kind of a woman. Now, you don't know what that means, but you can begin to understand as best you can that what you have to do is let go of the old, because it just doesn't work, in order to let the new appear. You do not change anything yourself. You don't change your old nature at all. You simply see. Now listen, can't you see it? Can't you see the worthlessness of living another day the way you have lived in the past? Don't kid me. Don't tell me you have anything of value. You live with yourself, don't you? And you tell on yourself all the time when you break down, when your face shows that anxiety, and when you get angry when the boss tells you to do something, and you feel that life is passing you by and you're getting older and you feel cheated. Ladies and gentlemen, are you seated there telling me that that is worth saving? Well, I'll tell you, God has a different opinion, which is why truth, reality, has presented you tonight, has presented you right tonight with the opportunity to see the mistake. Now, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with seeing the mistake you've made in order to correct it so you don't suffer from the mistake anymore? For heaven's sake, wake up. You won't be able to do it all by yourself. You're too much for you. Your old, hardened nature, it knows what to say to kid you. It knows how to scare you into staying where you are. It knows how to lie to you. And since you've been listening to it all your life, you'll continue to listen to it. But I'll tell you something. Truth, and the truth that is in this room right now, and this room is dominated by truth right now, not by your nature. The truth that is in this room is smarter than your negative nature that is betraying you. Don't you feel like cheering? There is something that is smarter than I am. No, I'm afraid you don't cheer. I'm afraid something else that has had you in its stranglehold all your life does not cheer at that statement at all. As a matter of fact, it dislikes it. It hates it. You ever read a story in a history book about a cruel, vicious, tyrannical king? Took the throne away from his brother. Let's say you've read that such sort of stories. And he oppresses everyone, and he taxes heavily, and he imprisons his political enemies. Do you think he's going to give up his throne? Do you think he's going to give up his power? Do you think he's going to give up his residence in the castle? It's a very good parallel to what happens inside human beings. The nature that has made you a terrified human being, which you are, and you know it and I know it, it's not going to give you up. But be of good cheer. If your intentions are right, that is. If they're not right, then there's no way you can be of good cheer. You can only be miserable. Be of good cheer if there's one small part of you that wants to go against the king, the evil king, the tyrannical king. All you have to do, look how easily that is to say, all you have to do is give up. And as I said earlier, the way you do that is to see your utter hopelessness. There's nothing you can do. How many times have you said, I'm not going to get mad at my wife anymore? And she just smiled when you said that, kind of sadly, because you've said that so many times, haven't you? You can't change. There's no way you can change. Then the next day you're guilty, so you take her to dinner or something like that. And the whole circle starts all over again. Women the same way toward men. Women can be terribly vicious toward men, toward stupid men, that is. A woman can't be vicious toward an intelligent man. And since most men are stupid, women can do anything they want with them. It goes back and forth both ways. I don't know which is the most evil, men or women. I think it's a close tie. How tragic. Follow along so far that the one thing you can do is see the situation as it is, which is this. There's no point in you continuing to do what you have been doing in order to be happy. You're not going to be. Absolutely not. You're not going to be free. You're just going to make the chains a little thicker, a little harder. What you can do is study. You can study spiritual principles. You can study yourself. You can study right here tonight in order to understand where you went wrong. And where you went wrong is thinking that you already have power to do something to better things, to change yourself. You have no power at all. All you have is an intellect, and that works terribly. All you have is a mind and raging emotions, and they can't do a thing for you. Darkness can't create light. But you keep talking to yourself, and you keep promising yourself and assuring yourself that tomorrow you're going to be different. Let's see, 365 days a year plus one extra in leap years. How many years have you lived on earth? And you've promised yourself that every day. Isn't it about time that you tried something else besides yourself? Yeah, I know what your reaction was to that. Who or what? And then if you're stupid, you'll use the word higher power or something like that, and then attribute the higher power to yourself, and you're right back where you started. Let's put it this way. Only a man, only a woman who is utterly, completely, 100% defeated will ever find God, truth, reality, and inner security. You're a long, long ways from being defeated, aren't you? How many of you are going to come back to more classes? Now, don't raise your hand. You'll just lie like you do about everything else. The one way you can change yourself is to come back to every single class that it's possible for you to attend. Read the books, listen to the cassette tapes. I have told you the one way. Now let's see which you want. The lies stop right here in this room. You yourself can find out whether you're a liar or not about wanting something new, about whether you're going to yield to your old nature or not. If you come back to these classes, there's 1 ounce of decency in you that wants to find something higher. If you don't, you have doomed yourself, period. Doomed yourself to increasing misery, increasing self-deception. That's your choice. Now I want to explain from another viewpoint what we've covered up until now. I'm going to take you to the movies. Imagine a movie just starts out, and it starts out with a lady reporter. And this lady reporter, this movie's on TV. You're seeing it on TV, and you're sitting home with your popcorn. And the lady reporter hears about a mystery ship that's anchored offshore. And strange things are going on in this ship, and good reporter, she wants to find out what it is. So she gets her notebook and her pencil and drives on down to the dock, and she can see the boat out in the mist, the fog out there. And she gets in a little boat and rows on out, and when she gets close, it's all foggy and mysterious and dangerous. Now remember, you're watching this movie on TV at home, the Sunday night movie. By the way, to get this a little clearer to you, any of you ever talk to a movie as it goes along? You know what I mean? You add your comments as to what the hero or hero should do or shouldn't do. You've done it. You've done it. Either silently or out loud. Here's the heroine, lady reporter in the boat in the big mysterious ship there. And she finally sees one of these rope ladders they have down the side. And the music is pretty eerie and weird. And she rows over. Look, she's all alone. You know what you say? You know what you say to her? Please don't go aboard. Right? You've identified with her. You are that heroine, right? She goes aboard. She didn't hear you. She climbs the rope ladder, gets on up, and the deck is all foggy and mysterious. And she stumbles around and she bumps against a chain and it clanks down and she goes like that, scared that it might alert someone. And she goes down, there's a door, our mysterious creaking door again. So she stands before it and you can see the little bit of indecision and you're saying, don't go in that door. She goes in the door. So the movie goes on and on and on, and it turns out that there's spacemen there or something who are plotting to overtake the world, which they are always doing but never succeeding in doing. You gave her all this fine advice, didn't you? She finally gets off safe. Now you're okay? She gets off okay. You gave her all this advice, don't go on the boat, don't go in the cabin, don't do this. It happened anyway. Why? I'm trying to get a point over to you. Everything that she did was ahead of you. It was a film. A film's a very mechanical thing. You can't change it. How can you change a film? There it is. They've cranked it out and they've got it and they put it in the movie theater and it goes over and over and over again. All your New Year's promises and all your pep talks to yourself don't change a thing. It's impossible. The movie is already made. Every time you tell yourself you're going to do something different, you're going to be happy, or you're going to stop being so miserable or whatever, there's no way it can change. The film has been completed. Understand? Now, there is mechanicalness, the mechanicalness of the mind and of our life. Now let me introduce a word that we have to use, which is inadequate as all words are. But there is such a thing which is not mechanical, which you can call conscious. Now, anything that is conscious is in charge of anything that is mechanical. We're beginning to close in a little bit. If all we have presently is a film, which is a fact, that runs through our mind the same old way, day after day, no matter what we do or what we say to it, if it runs over and over again and we get into all this trouble, as the girl reported it, nothing we can do about that. But we, as I said earlier, if we see that there's nothing we can do about that and we give up, we now see something that we would never have believed before, couldn't understand before, which is the entering into ourselves of a new spirit. You can call that consciousness if you like. You can call it a higher understanding. But it is something that is not on the level of the intellect at all. Therefore, it has power over the intellect. It can cancel it out. But when it cancels it out, it is not you who does anything, because you've understood thoroughly that you can't, and you've given up trying to change yourself. One thought can't change you, another thought can't. So you give up and the mind begins to slow down. It ceases to create images. It ceases to create vanities and egotisms. It slows down and down and down to the point let me put it this way, where God himself has a chance to do something with you. What prevents it? What stands in the way? What in particular? I will tell you. It's called placing feeling before fact. Now, take a little time to absorb that one. What prevents us from letting go so that something higher can come in and change us where we couldn't change ourselves is the fact that emotion, feeling, which is very powerful, which is very fast, zoom, it goes real fast. We place the preference for feeling over the facts of the matter. Have you ever defended a false position, a wrong position? Have you ever angrily insisted that you were right when you were wrong? We've done it all our lives, haven't we? There's a perfect example of how a feeling of self-righteousness, we invite it in and we place that before our wish for correction. Now, I started off this evening by asking you, what did you expect? How do you expect your life to be any different when you're doing the wrong things, when you're not really correcting it at all, but playing games with yourself in an attempt to hang on to your so-called self, which is no self at all, which has no existence in eternity at all, trying to hang on to that while pretending that you want something higher. Now don't miss what I'm going to say next. If you really, in your heart and in your spirit, want something higher than your present life, it is yours for the asking. If you don't change, if you don't start to change after hearing this talk tonight, it's because you don't want it. And you know what you'll be like? You'll be like the vast majority of human beings in this wretched world. You'll have sold your soul for a little spelling of your name right in the newspaper. You'll have sold your soul for fantasies, for egotisms, for living in daydreams. How very, very foolish for any human being to be so stupid is to think that he knows more than God. But you see, the problem is you haven't the slightest idea of who God is. You're atheists. You're an atheist. You are. Every single one of you in this room is an atheist. Don't tell me you know God. If you knew God, you wouldn't be here tonight. If you knew truth and reality, you wouldn't have some of the thoughts and feelings that are going through you right now. You sure have a lot of nerve, some of you people. I can read your minds. Boy, can I read your minds. And girl, can I read your mind. You mean to tell me that you are a right human being with what's been going through you here, listening to this talk and reacting to it the way you did? Who do you think you're kidding? You are right having all that inside you? Well, it's always good news. Everything you've heard tonight is good news because it's the fact. But it's good news for those of you here tonight who can begin to understand what I'm talking about because you want to understand. You know what the word interest means? To be interested in something. Isn't it right to be interested in something right, of course? How nice just to be interested in these things. And if you are really interested in, that's a marvelous first step. Our time is running out, but I want to cover one more point, which again connects with everything we're talking about. How many of you have problems? Let's see your hands. All right, you can all raise your hands, every one of you. Oh, do you have problems? The more you had, the less you wanted to raise your hand because you felt ashamed to admit it, which is your big problem. Listen to this then. Never, never again give meaning to a problem. if you don't give meaning to a problem, there is no problem. There's a problem because you attribute false value to it. You attribute power to it. You give a purpose to it because it goes back inside and serves egotism. I have so many problems. I must be the center of the wrath of the world. I've got so many difficulties and people treat me so badly and I'm so persecuted. Boy, I'm going to stay away from anyone I hear talking like that. That's a very sick mind. What you can do from now on is don't believe in them. And when you do that, something unexpected is going to happen. When you no longer believe in problems, it's the same thing as no longer believing in the problem-creating machine, which is egotism. Wow. You now believe in yourself. Stop it. That's your whole problem. And you refuse to let go because you're afraid of death. Why don't you die to your old nature and see what happens? I know. Why don't you do it so you can know and have the real life that comes out of it? Believing is a trick, a ghastly trick. Don't believe. Don't put feeling before fact. Put all these facts you've learned here tonight first and foremost. They will, I guarantee you, they will work for you. They'll work powerfully. They'll work silently. And you'll begin to sense it. At first it's just like one little glimmer of light way out in the night out there. One little glimmer, you're not sure whether you saw it or not. But it's different. You saw something that's different from the darkness. This is exactly how it'll proceed. This is a parallel, you understand? Then the next time you see the light, it stays on a little longer. And you're quite sure, hey, what I saw out there, that's called light. That's different from the vast darkness. There is something other than dark. There is something other than darkness. And it gets larger and larger and stays on longer and longer and longer. Do you know what this is? This is real religion. This is truly approaching God. This is truly becoming a decent, good human being. This is truly having a new life. This is truly having something that will endure beyond the physical body. What you're learning here tonight, well, these truths that you're learning here tonight are the only things you'll ever be able to take with you when you leave the physical body. The only things. What else are you going to take? Tonight you have something of eternal value. Final word. Understand this. See if you understand. Starting right now, you fight for yourself. You fight for yourself with all your might, and 10 million devils will fall eventually. They won't stand a chance because you have put yourself on the side of that light. You have said, I'm going to choose what is right for me. I don't care what anyone says. And I don't care what all my dark, threatening nature inside of me says. I'm going to go. You make that resolution, and I will guarantee you that you will both go and you will arrive. And at that point, you'll understand every single word we talked about tonight. You will know it from yourself, and you will live it. How many of you were at the earlier meeting this afternoon? May I see your hands, please? All of you heard the exercise then? How many of you succeeded 100% in the exercise? Let's see the hands of those of you who flopped again. Those of you who are new tonight, I will give you an exercise which connects very much with the ideas that we discussed earlier, which is to deliberately put ourselves into positions where our vanity begins to get knocked out of our life. Vanity, conceit, egotism are enemies of happiness. You cannot be egotistical and be happy at the same time. Egotism must go if you're ever going to be a free human being. So I'm going to give you an exercise, very simple one of the easy ones, but you won't be able to do it any more than some of the others were able to do it. But you will be able to see that you cannot do it. And after a long, long time, a lot of hard work on yourself, you'll be able to know where you are at will when you really need to. The exercise is as follows. When you leave this building tonight, when you go from inside to outside, simply know that you're walking through the doorway. Just know it. Don't be thinking about it, I'm walking through the doorway. But this awareness, a general sensing that you're walking through it. You'll get it after a while. That's not too hard to catch. When you go into your car, you will also know, you won't be in thought, you will know that you're getting into your car. Simply be aware of yourself getting into your car. You can even feel the hand on the handle as you slide in, hand on the steering wheel, and so on. As a third part of this whole four-part exercise, when you enter the next building after leaving here, whatever it might be, your home or apartment or whatever, you will also know when you're walking through the doorway from the outside to the inside this time. Simply be aware of yourself. It's something that says silently, I'm walking through this doorway, but it isn't thought. It doesn't verbalize itself like that. You simply know it. As a fourth part of it, the next time you take food or drink, you will know that you're taking it. You pick up an apple, you pick up the apple, you suddenly know that you have an apple in your hand. This will be the first time in your whole life you ever consciously picked up an apple. And think of all the apples you've picked up in all your life. There's a difference. Now, why are we doing this? This is an exercise in canceling out marauding thought that's always chasing around in your mind. If I didn't give you this exercise, when you walk through that door, you'd be thinking of 1,001 possibilities, wouldn't you? Which way to drive to get home, or maybe you're talking with someone about something as you pass through the door. This is an effort, a right effort to silence the mind, to slow down its chattering. If you succeed even once, if you're aware of yourself, if you walk through the door just once, it will be a great start for you. But for a long, long time, you'll see that you simply can't remember it. Now you watch and see. Now when you get home, maybe an hour after you've had a snack, you'll suddenly, well, I said anybody can do a spiritual exercise like that, and you forgot it, you wait and see. Now, wives can't help husbands can't help wives. You're on your own in this. Don't say anything to anyone you came with. You're on your own, work on your own. If you see that you failed, then you at least know that you failed. And just smile at it, be amused by it, and see how asleep you are, and go back to the battle again. All right, do keep the questions short and to the point, please, and raise your hand. The gentleman. What did he say?
He said he has a two-part question.
A what? No, a one-part question. Forget it, come back to it later. The lady back there.
The idea that you cannot change your false self, is that with the idea that you would spend more time with your true self?
The idea that you can't change your false self, is that the idea that you'd spend more time with your true self?
No. Don't try to work, if I understood this, and correct me if I didn't, don't work with your true self because you don't have any. Simply see your false self. The seeing of it is the beginning of the dissolving of it, because the seeing is apart from it. You're standing aside and seeing that idiot that you called a brilliant man. You're seeing how he bluffs, how he lies about everything, how he shakes, how insecure he is, how someone gives him a frown and he crumbles before it. By the way, that's a pretty good object of work right there. Have you ever noticed how other people's faces can intimidate you? The slightest glance. The time will come when you will never, ever in your life be intimidated by any kind of a negative frown, negative face of any kind from anyone else. You're solid in yourself. And another thing, Do you know that people who go around with depressed faces, with hateful faces, with sarcastic faces and things like that, don't you understand that they're sick people? Would you agree that depression is sick? Well, you'd better start so that you can see what you are like. A depressed person is poisoning himself. And a depressed human being is very, very immoral. Look what you're spreading around. Your gloom. You're spreading around your defeat. To be lost is the same thing as being very immoral. You have no right. You have no business sending your trash out into this world, but you do it and you don't care. In fact, you love it. If you're going to infect someone else with your sickness, you love it. I have power to infect someone else, and you are a lunatic. You'd better be locked up. If all the insane people were locked up in this world, it'd be nothing but jails and lunatic asylums. Isn't this cheerful? No.
As I see the abnormalities in myself and others, I don't know how much of it is real and how much of it is simply criticism.
As I see the abnormalities in myself and others, I don't know how much of it is real or how much of it is simply criticism.
All abnormalities you see in yourself are not real in the sense that they are permanent and necessary, but they are a present part of you. If you see them and suffer from them, they are a real present possession. You understand, remember the rash of movies that came out about demon possession 2 or 3 years ago, a whole lot of them, you see them on TV now. Let me tell you, they're accurate as far as the possession part. Any kind of anger, any kind of fury, anything that goes through you means that you are being possessed by that voice. Let me highly recommend you get that $1 booklet, Freedom from Harmful Voices, the green booklet. Don't fail, all of you, get it and read it. It'll be a revelation to you such as you haven't had in years about what is going through you, what has possessed you. When you understand what possesses you, you'll understand the way out, which is to... Now, look, what would you say silently to yourself? Would you say that you want to be well? Or would you say you'd rather remain as you are, sick? You read that booklet and they'll point out where you are being deceived and where you are being possessed. And while you can't dispossess yourself, you can see where you are and not call yourself God anymore. And when you no longer call yourself God, God will enter your life and take care of all those devils because they have no strength at all. If you're still suffering, you still give power to them, which is simply a mistake which you can correct. First of all, let's get the practical parts. You do use your mind conduct your business. You use it to cook dinner. That's out of the way. That's practical. The correct use of your mind would be to store up knowledge, to begin to accumulate facts such as you've got here tonight. When you have so much knowledge, you will understand intellectually at the start what you must do and what you must not do. And what you must not do is identify with the knowledge that you have collected. And all phony philosophers, all religious hypocrites, all phony clergymen, all religious people of all kinds, of which there are millions who destroy the world in the name of God. These are people who have identified with mere knowledge, and they can quote from the Bible, they can quote all sorts of religious books, and they are quoting it mechanically because they've identified with knowledge, because they want that knowledge to do something for their ego. See, I am the minister of this church. Look at me and be sure to pay me a salary and all that. I am a man of God. And he's trying to convince himself that he's a man of God, therefore God is going to have a very special place for him up in heaven. All this This is a trap which one person in a million sees. They fall right into it. At a certain point, when you've accumulated so much knowledge in your mind simply because you want to change, then you must understand that that knowledge does not belong to you. It cannot do anything for you. The only thing you can do is to take the knowledge that you must die to identification with knowledge. That is, you must have it in your mind, but it must not form any vanity, any conceit in you. You must not start teaching others either. Otherwise, it will form a false identification. The time will come when you can have knowledge, not identify with it, and at that point, the spirit of truth will enter you, and the knowledge won't have any, there'll be no way you can misuse it. Go through it and you'll understand what it's all about. Please.
What or who inspired your teachings?
What or who inspired your teachings?
My teachings, truth.
How do I stay in the moment?
How do I stay in the moment?
Get rid of unnecessary thoughts. There are practical thoughts, as I said before, when you're working around the house or whatever, and you can't be conscious at that time. You have to be in thought when you're stirring the rice, right? You have to think about that. So you're in thought, but that's practical thought, and that's not wrong. That can't form an I, unless you're the greatest rice cooker in the world, you know. Then rice cooking is to form an I. But a healthy mind operates alternately between practical thought and in a spirit of awareness, such as you're given the exercise for tonight to walk through the door. It alternates between practical thought and being aware of yourself. An unhealthy mind operates between practical thought and neurotic thought. And the awareness doesn't enter into it at all. A psycho can be very practical. He can cook rice too. The lady on the left first, please, then the left.
Most people plan for the future. There is a saying, if you take care of the present, the future will take care of itself. Could you expand on that, please?
Most people plan for the future. There's a saying that if you take care of the present, the future will take care of itself. Would you talk about
Well, that's true, of course. Look, your problem is that you have a future. And you worry about it, don't you? Now, in reality and truth, you have no future at all and you don't need one. What you do need is to live fully and alive right now. But the false sense of self must have a future to survive. Tomorrow I'm going to conquer the world. Tomorrow things are going to be better. Tomorrow when I get a man or get rid of a man, I'm going to be happier. On and on and on. Always living in the future or in the past. Freedom is timeless. The time self lives in past, earned in future, which is bondage. All this is very complex to explain with words. And if you want to go beyond the words, then go beyond the mind where words are formed, and you'll understand. And you'll be living right now. For example, you could be seated right here in this room and be very conscious of yourself, knowing what your reactions are to what you're to what you're hearing, even see hostility in you or whatever. This is the beginning of being a healthy human being. The other lady, yes.
This afternoon, you said that unnecessary thought was death. Is that correct?
This afternoon you said that unnecessary thought is death.
Is death?
Is death. Is that correct?
Yes, it is quite correct. Because negative thought, sarcastic thought, untruthful thought, would you call that life? Life is living in the freedom of the light right now. And thought is always in time. You are always in time. When you get rid of you, there is no self to live in time, either past or in the future. But there's a new nature that lives right now. And you're working hard with your minds to try to understand that, aren't you? You'll not succeed. Miss Lynn.
How do you turn to that light?
How do you turn to that light?
Are you tired of suffering? Are you tired enough to simply give up?
Yes.
That's how. If you haven't found the light, you haven't given up yet. And you haven't, and you haven't. I better tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. You can kid yourself. You can't kid God. And you've been kidding yourself all your life. That's pretty childish, you know. Why don't you grow up? You're not going to win. I'm telling you, you're not going to win. Aren't you glad? No, it makes you sad. See, the ego self rails and gets furious when it's told it can't win. Let it get furious and you watch it, and don't you side with it. Someday, when you reach a certain point, you'll come to a talk like this, and you'll hear hatred inside of you at what you're hearing, and you'll say, I caught you at last. That means you're no longer identifying with what was going through you. You're standing apart as a witness of it and seeing it. You are getting healthy. You are getting free. I know you people. I know all of you. I've never seen you before, but I know you. I know how you're fighting. And I know how you still insist that I've got to win. I've got to win. Every time you say I've got to win, you lose. Look at your hard faces. Come on. Go home and look in the mirror sometime, and you tell me whether you know truth or not. For heaven's sake, you're like 5-year-old kids telling big fibs to Papa. You're wrecking yourself, lady. You're wrecking yourself, sir. And I have one thing to say to you. Farewell. You have been given the truth. Take it or leave it. Oh, we'll take a couple more. No, you had one. This lady.
It seems like my mind is my enemy and constantly working against.
Grover, come to a period.
It seems like my mind is my enemy and constantly working against my best interest, period.
That is a fact. The lady back there.
My attendance, my
Yes.
study room, to gain one inside knowledge. Why would it be necessary to hear another lesson of Vernon study? In addition,
She's saying something like, if I attend classes and I listen to cassette lectures, why is it important to hear another lecture of yours, per se?
Well, did you learn everything there is to know in this one lecture? I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. Come to every class.
you mentioned at the beginning that if you didn't attend the second lecture of yours, that it wouldn't be breaking new ground.
She said that if you didn't attend the second lecture, she didn't attend the second lecture, that she wouldn't be breaking new ground.
Oh, okay, we'll go on to the next. The gentleman over there.
Who or what is God?
Who or what is God?
Your intellect will never know. Your intellect, everyone's intellect, is the enemy of God. The intellect sets itself up as God, and that is what you call egotism. When you get rid of your egotism, your sickness, you will know who God is, but you won't be thinking about it. You will know it. And for the first time in your life, you'll be a decent human being. You're not now, you know. You're not at all, and you know it, and I know it. You know, I sit here and I look out and I see people battering themselves trying to fight, and I know why. I know that you're afraid to die to your present nature because you call that your life. And you're afraid that you are going to die if you give up your present nature. What's going to die is your present false nature, which has been murdering you. And you won't listen to me when I try to explain that in about 50 different ways. You know more than God himself. You know, very, very few human beings ever break free. That's a fact. Christ said that 2,000 years ago, and it's a fact today. Very, very few human beings ever break out of their sickness and egotism because they fear death. If you will die, you will be born again. You will be resurrected into reality. You have to die before you're resurrected, and you refuse to do that because you call your present death state life. You call your present death state life. How can you have the enormous ignorance and stupidity to call your resistance to truth life? That is death. You're living in death. And you call it life. And I know why. You're afraid. You can only make it out by coming here and let us going over and over again with you to show you the mistake you're making. I know how afraid you are to die to your old egotistical nature. I know it perfectly. I know you need to be step by step, a little knowledge here, a little insight there, and to break down your hardness. Oh, you're as hard as rocks. If you don't come back to more lectures, you're going to get harder than you were before you came here. It's too late now. It's too late. You have come here and you've heard the truth. If you reject it, you're going to be worse off than you were before. You'll never ever forget, every one of you, you'll never ever forget what you've heard here tonight because you've heard the truth. Now, if there's a few really intelligent people who are really to give up, really ready to give up, someday you will thank God for what happened here in this room, for the truth that you've heard. You can't thank God now. All you can do is thank yourself. All you can do is thank your sickness. Thank you, sickness, for giving me a lie. May God have mercy on you. You're going to need it. But a few of you will make it. Come back to every class, and good night.